Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer. It's Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Friday, June 16th, which makes it the end of week recap as well. We'll go over some of the week's performances in terms of sectors, just to kind of give you an idea of what outperformed. A lot of things had some pretty stellar performance, as well as what the underperformers were, both in the US and internationally. Before we get to that, risk disclaimer in front of you: everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. So, quick themes of the day. Well, of course, today was quadruple witching. You probably heard that phrase over and over today. I even put together a video and I talked about that. But I'll tell you, besides a little bit of, I think a give back of markets being pretty overbought in the short term, there really wasn't any major volatility. Even the volume I was looking at was a little bit less than expected. So regardless, that's in the rearview mirror. All the indices, their quarterly rebalance, that has been set because that was all tied to today's close, and we'll kind of move forward a bit. And and basically today's the 16th of the month, but we're basically at the halfway point, or a little bit past the halfway point of the month. A reminder: we have Monday off, and then Tuesday is the 20th. So we're going to be rapidly getting to the end of the month. So I think it's a good time to kind of reflect a little bit. We've had some massive outperformance in some areas. Just looking at these numbers, and of course we'll do more of a half a year update in a couple of weeks. But I mean, it's very surprising to look at some of these numbers. And the Q's up 38%. I was actually looking today to see, because sometimes, at least I forget these numbers very quickly. Some people are very good with memorizing numbers and dates. I'm not one of those people. I have to go back and kind of look. But I think for the year 2022, the Q's were down about 36%. So we're now past that, and we're not even at the halfway point of the year. I would say, just tremendous performance. Big outperformance of the Qs over the other indices. SPY is now up about 15% for the year. That's impressive for a full year, and again, we're at the halfway point. Small caps have been lagging, but they caught up a little bit. Even though they were on my spreadsheet, it says down for the week. Keep in mind, all the numbers that I'm going to go through for the 5-day are actually looking at 6 days of data, because Bloomberg hasn't updated, so it's looking back one extra day. But regardless, you can get an idea of what the performance was, based on this and based on the week. Pretty interesting too in terms of the week for growth versus value. Both pretty darn strong. And overall for the week, even though today was a down day, the Qs were down 60 basis points, SPY down 70 basis points, and the small caps underperforming a little bit. Still, what a week. And so I think one of the things I'm going to just talk about very quickly in this video, because I'm not going to make this a long video. This is going to be pretty short and sweet. But I think just going forward, think about, always keep your eyes on the road. Days like this, where there just wasn't very many opportunities, at least that I saw, is making sure that you're adjusting your trading system, right? Your trading plan. I said this, we do a Q&A session every Friday, and I said this earlier, is that just about any trader can make money in this market, right? Some obviously better than others making money, but the hard part, and where you differentiate yourselves from others is not giving it back, right? And we got through like an hour or two of the day, and I just said today, I'm like, I think today's going to be a little bit too whippy, too much chop. And I said, basically, if I wasn't running a trading room, I would basically be taking off the day, because sometimes there's days that there's not going to be a lot of edge, right? And especially when we're overbought like this. Looking at the weekly chart of SPY, we did get above the value area for the year, that's impressive. So, 430 is going to be a level to be watching on the downside in SPY. The one thing that I would note too, and I may have mentioned this in yesterday's video, but we have come across one of these virgin point of controls. That's basically, if you're not really familiar with the concept, but it is an area where a lot of buyers and sellers previously have met up, a lot of volume where we haven't returned to. So we returned to that in SPY today, and we've got a little bit of a fade. So this will be interesting if this is a short-term high or not, or if it's just a little bit of a pause where there was a lot of volume previously. I call it overhead supply. One of the takeaways too is to say, okay, one of the things that I generally watch when we break out and when we're trending is the 5-period moving average. Even though we took this out, this is just an inside, almost kind of an inside day, right? And no change in the trend. So sometimes you can pause here, but I wouldn't really kind of change my mind on the short-term trend unless we do have a change in the short-term trend, and that would be a move back below the 5-period moving average. So for now, what I basically did in my portfolio, my trading portfolio, is I reduced a little bit of risk yesterday, and I reduced a little bit today as well, right? And so I think overall, right, and this is kind of the message that I wanted to really set in this video, is that be patient with this market, right? A lot of the momentum that we saw this week, right, still take from what you learned in 2022 if you traded through it, right? Be a disciplined trader, all right? But also, take calculated risks, right? One of the things that we talked about too in the Q&A session today is that, I got off to kind of a slow start this year because I was trading the beginning of this year with 2022 in mind, in that it was a harder year. We didn't see as many breakouts, right? You generally don't see breakouts or as many breakouts in a bear market, right? A lot of breakouts get rejected, but this is a different year. So you have to trade what's in front of you, not what the market did last year. And, certainly not what it did a couple of years ago, right? Adapt to what the market is giving you. So, I think that my hunch is that there's going to be plenty of opportunities to come. But with us being overbought, right, the RSI, even though the S&P came in today, so with the SPY RSI is on the bottom of my screen, it's still a 70, right? So we're still a little bit overbought using that RSI study. And the Qs, which have been overbought for most of the month, is a 74 RSI. So that's still pretty heated. And again, you could see the same thing here with the Qs. We're still above the short-term moving average. Here's what the Qs looks like on the weekly chart, right? We slice through that top of value, no problem. Small caps, last chart I'll show you here is that more chop than anything else, in my opinion, right? Nice to see, and more sideways, right? And how would I define sideways? Well, the price is right in the middle of the value area. So I know some traders got excited about the small caps coming up, breadth starting to expand a little bit, but I don't think anything is really, the picture really hasn't changed here in the small cap ETF. It's right in the middle of the year, and it's just up a little bit from where it started the year. So as I mentioned, a couple of things I would say going forward to think about, right, is because again, when everything is moving as fast as it is, or fast as it was this week, and here is the weekly performance. SPY was up 2.4%. Small caps, again, this is 6 days of data, so just bear that in mind. But look at the performance in the Qs, up 4.2%. International developed and emerging markets were both strong, up about 2.6%. The dollar was down a little bit in bonds. Even though we had a FOMC week, we're pretty quiet, right? And there's the performance again of the growth versus value. Growth outperformed, but value was no slouch. Sectors, KWeb up 5.8%. Transports had a big week, right? We talked about, I actually had a trade on in them last week and unwound that trade in the beginning of this week. The semis turned out another big week of performance, so did tech. And then you had a couple different areas that showed up here. Telecom stocks, agriculture stocks were strong this week. Solar got into the mix, right? As well as I think clean energy was up 3.7%, even though I don't think it did well today. And, and then a bunch of other areas, a lot of groups up over 4%. On the underperformer list, the banks, they are the serial underperformer this year. They finished down, if you consider going back 6 days. Energy stocks also, they have not been where the performance or the alpha's been this year. Interesting, biotech had a weak day today and finished down there, you can see. And then a few other areas, all right? And then there's your international performance as well. But I would make sure that you're set up for the next, as we get closer to the second half of this year, right? I would say take a look at what we're doing at Tribeca Trade Group. I just lost the slide that I had up, but here you go. Here's where you find out about Tribeca Trade Group. And I would say, I started to say, if we do get some type of a pullback or some type of a rest, right, wait for signals to re-emerge again. There's a lot of names that basically went straight up this week. Wait for them to kind of come down a little bit, and then make sure that you have conviction in your trades, right, and define your trades upon entry, right? Not while you're in the middle of the trade, but define your stop price, define where you're taking targets, or what's your goal for the trade, right? Is it a longer term trade? Is it a short term trade, right? Or is it even somewhere in between of that? All right. So here's where you learn about our company, TribecaTradeGroup.com, and what we do on a day-to-day basis. Keep in mind a couple other things that you don't see here, or maybe you do with the pre-market, but we do a pre-market every day at 9-10 in the morning. Also, what's really good for part-time traders is I put together a midday note, which basically is something that you can get through in about, I'd say less than 2 minutes. It gives you an update on all my open positions, gives you an update on our watch list, and it also gives you the themes of the day and a few charts of interest. Usually I include a chart if I just got into a name that day. I usually put it in there, put the chart in there so that you can understand what I'm doing. But we do that in our charts channel in Slack. Every time I get into a trade, there is a chart set up so that you know what I'm looking at, you know what I'm thinking as I enter the trade. Speaking of which, and also you get, a pretty detailed watch list, in terms of, and this we update as we go along. Interesting, some of these, you could see like today was a good day to take off, right? A lot of these names that still, even factoring today's performance, I did very well for the week. But today was just not the day, where there was a lot of, upside momentum. In fact, some things corrected a little bit. All right, guys, look forward to trading with you next week. Again, Monday is a holiday. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday.